Hey TikTok, I haven't looked to see how many of you guys are watching, but I made a broth earlier with some smoked turkey leg and some mirepoix, which is onion and carrot and celery, and some garlic and some bay leaf and some peppercorn and some dried porcini for a little extra mushroom boost. Lots of umami and dried mushrooms, so they taste real good. I am filtering the stuff out of the broth because I am going to transfer the broth into a bowl and then use this nice big Dutch oven to start cooking down some more veggies. And I'll put some mushrooms into the veg. So I've got some wine caps here. I also have a bunch of butter boletes and porcini that I cooked down on a previous live. So these are really delicious edible mushrooms. The wine caps are from my garden, and I just posted a video about wine cap mushrooms, and pretty awesome. You can just grow these. It took about 2 months from the time that I inoculated some straw. I soaked the straw for about 3 days in water. I didn't have to sterilize it because soaking it like that lets the anaerobic bacteria kind of take over, and they knock back all the fungal competition. And I just took the wine cap grain spawn that I got from North Spore and put that directly onto the straw, stirred it around for a little bit, and then I've kept it under a mister that I kind of periodically turn on and off every couple of days, and boom, I've got wine cap mushrooms. So you want to grow your own mushrooms at home. These ones are really, really easy to do. They grow here pretty much all year round in California as long as the conditions are right, and that's really awesome. So yeah, wine caps are phenomenal edible mushrooms. They're Stropharia rugosa annulata. When they're young, they look like this. As they get a little bit older, the caps open up, and I like the young specimens better. I think the flavor's a little bit better. The spores on these can taste a little funky. So if you get a really big wine cap, you can scrape the gill surface out with like a spoon, and then it tastes a little bit better that way. Just the gill's kind of a really super earthy flavor, which is, it's not bad. It's just a fairly strong flavor, and I don't always want that strong of a mushroom flavor in what I'm cooking, which is one of the reasons that I love these boletes and porcini, is although they don't look quite as cool when they're all cooked down, they have a very mild, sort of sweet, nutty, mushroomy flavor. So these are really, really good. They're also very, very meaty, which I really like. Yeah, don't worry, the person who was saying sort of incendiary things in the comments is no longer here. So I'm going to try to strip this this turkey leg off. So maybe I should have worn gloves for this. Woo! Smoked turkey legs. Turkey legs are amazing. They're just there's so much like collagen and stuff in them. I'm afraid my hands are going to be really goopy and sticky after ripping this turkey leg apart, which is why I was just considering maybe I should have worn gloves, but oh, it was good. There's a local grocery store that has a really good meat counter, and this is a smoked turkey leg from their meat counter. So I know it was like smoked in-house, and it's really good. You can usually buy smoked ham hocks or smoked turkey legs or necks or something like that. They usually take these sort of like less than premium cuts and smoke them, and that adds a tremendous amount of flavor to stuff like this. And it's really easy to cook down. You just kind of boil it for a little while, and then you pick the meat off. And I'm not going to cook the meat in until the very end with the beans because I don't want the meat to get overdone here. But I cooked it long enough that it would kind of shred apart, and I can take out some of these tough little tendon bits and cartilage pieces, which is great. This is what I'm doing right now, which I may regret doing on TikTok, because this makes a bit of a mess. There's some interesting noises going on here too as I work with this stuff. Could use a knife too, but you know, we're going primal on it. Rip this thing apart with my bare hands. You know, it's one of those things as a meat eater. Sometimes you gotta like recognize that you're eating an animal, and you know, I appreciate everyone who's vegetarian and vegan, and I, for the most part, eat a lot of vegetarian and vegan food. But I really appreciate the flavor that the meat brings to things, especially when it's been smoked and processed in ways like this. Let's see, there's some like silver skin, something like that in here. That's kind of hard to get off. See if I can rip this off with my hands. Woohoo! I'll run a knife through this meat too before I put it into the beans. That'll make it a little bit easier to handle. But I'm gonna hang on to some of the skin, some of the fat. So I'll put that in and let that cook down too. I'll probably take this bone and continue to cook it down as well, because the bone has so much flavor and sort of good stuff that I can still extract. Because I only cooked this turkey leg for maybe about an hour, so I could shred it, but I didn't want the meat to get overdone. So I'm just stripping it off and trying to pick out all the weird little tendony things in here, and then I'll put that back into the broth. Okay, so that's sitting there. I'll take all these weird turkey leg pieces, and I'm gonna toss this in the oh, there's a nice little nugget of meat. Yum. Toss that in compost. I'll put my meat aside. There it goes. Put that out of sight. Let's see, I'm gonna clean my hands off here. God, that's good. Also, I'm making a complete mess of myself in my kitchen, but that's okay. That's what we're here for. I'm gonna take all this goopy stuff, put this aside too. Wash my hands off real quick, and then we're gonna get processing some mushrooms and some veggies. And this is a great way to eat because you're just using a lot of stuff up from the garden. I've got leeks and carrots and celery and wine cap mushrooms and different types of oniony type things I've got around, like green garlic and etc. It's fun to kind of make a big stew like this, and I'll be able to eat this all week, share it with friends. Let's see, I'm going to cut this leek in half. Leeks are notorious for being full of dirt, and this one certainly is. So I'm going to pour this broth off that I made, and within that broth are some porcini and some garlic and the bay leaf. Let's see, we'll put the porcini out here on the board so I can cut these up. Everything else has been kind of cooked down to the point that it's good to throw it out. So I'm just going to pitch the peppercorns and the bay leaf and stuff and right down the garbage disposal. Give my pot a very quick rinse here. So I don't need to like fully soak out my pot or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to get some of the junk off the side. I'm going to put it on a low heat just to start drying it out and let it heat up while I get my vegetables processed here. So here's my beautiful smoked turkey broth. Move that over, and now we'll start doing some veg prep. Okay, here's my boletes. Here's my wine cap mushrooms. I've got some dried boletes here too. We've got a lot of different mushrooms going into this. So we've got garlic, green garlic, and we've got our leeks here. I'm going to take a knife and split my leeks and then start to saute these. I'm going to cut the leeks in half and see how dirty. Oopsie daisy. Well, that's a dirty leek. That was one dirty leek. I see the dirt all over the place. All right, we're going to have to soak these leeks. This is going to have to happen. Sometimes you can just kind of wash the dirt out of the leek, but in this case, there is too much dirt up in this leek. So I'm gonna cut it thin. First of all, I'm gonna wash it, get some of that dirt out, and then I'm gonna cut it thin and soak it. And that'll be really the best way to get all of the dirt out of the leek, because these are really freaking dirty. So blame the farmer. It's not really the farmer's fault. It's the leek's fault. That's what leeks do. They pick up dirt. Anyhow, I'm going to take a bowl here, put our mushrooms just to the side while I run a knife through these leeks. And I'm not trying to do anything fancy here. I'm just going to run my knife through them, get them sliced, and then we will soak these fairly thoroughly. So these parts of the leeks are clean. So I'm going to put those aside and just take all these green parts here and give them a really solid soak. So one thing you can do if you've got dirt on your veggies like this is you can add just a little bit of salt into the soaking liquid, and that'll help draw some of the dirt off the veggies. And that's because salt increases the solubilization constant of dirt and chemicals and stuff like that, and makes it easier for things to come unbound if there's high salt. So this is part of why salt makes food taste more like itself, because if you have salt present, the volatile aromas in food are more likely to come off of the food and thus taste more. So kind of a weird concept, but you know, if you start realizing chemically how salt works, you start to see how it functions in all sorts of ways. So I'm going to do 2 soaks of water on these leeks. Make sure you get them really nice and clean. It's important to me because I don't like eating dirt. As much as I love mushrooms, I don't want to eat dirt. So why do I touch the fungi so sensually sometimes? Well, it drives engagement, frankly. That's the real answer. You know, it's been a fun way to do science communication for people. You know, first of all, I find it funny, so that's part of why I do it. And I do it because people get a lot more excited about a mushroom if you touch it in a way that elicits an emotional response rather than just talking about it kind of plainly or scientifically. So I've learned, maybe let's call it the funny way here on TikTok, that if I interact with mushrooms in a particular manner, then the videos will do better. And so, you know, it's a bit of a joke, but it's a way to get people to care about fungi and mushrooms when otherwise they wouldn't. And I think I have a pretty proven track record of literally reaching millions of people around the world with funky, funny mushroom content. And so a lot of people get pretty rude about it. People say some pretty nasty things to me sometimes with regards to those videos. But, you know, again, the point is to get people excited and learning, and I think I've done a pretty good job of that. So I'm not going to apologize for getting people excited about mushrooms in a way that they weren't previously excited about them. And, you know, I don't know, ideally I'll keep doing it as long as it's fun, and so at least some people appreciate it, because there's plenty of people who don't appreciate it, but that's fine. I don't make content for them. I make it for people who dig what I do. You know, that's a hard lesson in life, that you definitely can't please everyone, and so sometimes you just have to do your best to make something that feels authentic to you, and be excited about things in the way that you get excited about things. And I think that's kind of the key to like originality and potentially success as we measure it in our society. So, you know, all those reasons. Let's see, I'm going to toss these leeks into the pan. I'm going to chop a few more veg on screen. Woo! Okay. Leeks made quite a splash there, so I'm going to go in with some onion and garlic too, and I'll hit it with the celery and a little bit of carrot as well. So Cardi's baby boy are asking, what makes a fungi a mushroom? So I would suggest you check out the Mycology 101 video I posted yesterday, because that's hopefully got an answer in there for you. But essentially mushrooms are the reproductive structures of mycelium, And mycelium, and I'll make another video about this, but mycelium is generally a fungal structure composed of little threads. There is some kinds of fungi that produce mycelium but do not make mushrooms. And then there's other kinds of fungi that have mycelium and do make mushrooms, and those are what mushrooms are. Generally, those belong to two major classes, or what are called phyla, which are basidiomycetes and ascomycetes, and I will do a video about those soon, although I just found out from TikTok that those kinds of educational style videos that I've been doing, it doesn't really matter, so those videos take a lot of work for me to make. So I'll make some, but I'm not going to make as many as I thought I would, because TikTok is not going to reward me for making them. So we'll see, but I will make more educational stuff. I just will do it in my manner instead of the way that TikTok wants me to do things. Anyhow, yeah, ascomycetes, basidiomycetes are the phyla of fungi that produce mushrooms. And so there's lots of other fungi like yeasts and molds and filamentous fungi that do not produce mushrooms. So some other fungi you'd be familiar with that you'd know would be something like penicillium, which is where we got penicillin, the antibiotic, from. But it's also the white stuff on the outside of like brie cheese. So penicillium is a mold that produces an antibiotic that kills bacteria. And that's part of what's made it such a good thing for human food production. So it's the mold that's on the outside of like bloomy rind cheeses like brie. It's also on the outside of salami, because that has antimicrobial effects and stops bacteria from eating the salami. And so instead it loses moisture slowly and turns into a nice dry aged sausage. Because generally what causes food to spoil is too much water. It's the water activity that causes things to go bad. If you don't have, if you have minimal water, then bacteria and fungi can't really do too much to it, and so that's why things preserved in like sugar and salt tend to be somewhat safe. I mean, those are also osmoprotectant molecules that cause stress to anything trying to grow in them. But dehydration is a great way to make something not go bad, because when you take all the water out, nothing can really grow on it. So dried fruit, jerky, etc. is all safe to eat because it's been dried. So yeah, hopefully that makes sense. I'll probably do a better job explaining some of these things when I'm not in the middle of cooking, but this is what I'm doing right now. So let's see. More questions from you guys? What type of doctor am I? I am a PhD in biochemistry. Mushrooms make a killer weld bisque. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I'll dig the sound of that. I'm going to wash these wine caps real quick because they've got some residual straw and dirt on them. Give them a little bit of a fry up. Okay, so we're going to do a few things here. I'm going to cut the mushroom off here because I really like the stems of wine caps, but the caps are the part I'm not as crazy about when it comes to wine caps. Stems have the great sort of meaty, crunchy texture, and the caps can be a little strong, earthy flavored. So I'm going to try something here. I'm going to try scraping the gills out of this. And normally I don't scrape the gills out of mushrooms because the gills are where a lot of the umami and the flavor is. But for wine caps, I actively don't really like the flavor of the gills. So I'm going to just try to remove some of this and see if I like the flavor better when I cook this up. So the spores are here in the gills, and so they have a particularly strong flavor for this type of mushroom. Usually, like button mushrooms in the store, I don't bother taking the gills out of. But if you don't want those to taste so strong, like you're cooking mushrooms for someone who doesn't actually like mushrooms, you could pull the gills out because the flavor will be less strong. And that's true of most mushrooms. If you take the gills or the pores off, the flavor will be a little less intense. Sometimes it's hard to do. I can't really get them all off, but it's close enough. So let's see, cut these down. Stack them up, run my knife through it. Nice big meaty pieces of these mushrooms. Mushrooms will definitely cook down quite a bit. But once you cook them down, their texture is very, like, you can keep cooking them. They're not gonna go off like a piece of meat and get too stringy or too loose, and they're not gonna get overly soggy like a vegetable would. They will stay kind of like with the same texture. If you cook a mushroom for 5 minutes or for 5 hours, it'll be pretty much the same texture. So it's hard to, because of that, it's hard to overcook a mushroom. And just in terms of safety, it's always better to cook your mushrooms longer rather than less time, because you can't undercook a mushroom, and that can make you sick. Something like morel mushrooms are a common, very popular edible mushroom that can make you sick if you undercook it. So I always tell people to be sure to cook their mushrooms thoroughly. It's going to be better that way, and the flavor will probably be better too. So I'm just running my knife through some celery here. And I have a whole bunch of scarlet runner beans too that are going to be going in this pot with the broth, the liquor from the turkey, and all these mushies and veggies. I pre-cooked the beans and I pre-cooked the stock so that those things are kind of done. And now I'm just cooking the veggies and things that are going into this. And I could peel this carrot, but I'm really like, the skin looks pretty good. I'm not worried about it. I'm going to cut these in half. Cut these in half. Oop. Shoop. There we go. Make nice little half moons of carrots. So this is pretty classic. Sometimes I'll do this with fennel and maybe like radishes or other interesting kind of vegetables. Right now I'm going pretty classic. It's just like mirepoix of carrots, celery, onion, leeks, mushrooms, turkey, and beans. I'm not trying to do anything super crazy or fancy here. I might add an interesting flavor component like some gochujang or some miso to this when it's done, just as a fun way of adding a little extra umami and some flavor, or I'll just add some more dried mushroom powders, something like that, to bring lots of depth of flavor to this dish. So now I'm going to chop up my wine cap stems, and I'm just going to run a knife right through this, so on we go. Okay, so I'll bring you guys over here to the stove, and you can see what's happening here with my veg. Okay, I'm gonna shift this over. Woo! It's exciting. A toadstool is just a general name for a poisonous mushroom. In fact, toadstool has basically no meaning whatsoever as a name. So I don't like the word toadstool because it doesn't mean anything. It's not descriptive of a particular kind of mushroom. It's not even descriptive of a toxic mushroom necessarily. It's just like a catch-all word like mushroom. So I would avoid using the word toadstool when possible. If anything, a toadstool is a type of mushroom, but you're not being very specific about what type of mushroom. So I usually try to refer to mushrooms by a common name as well as a scientific name, because then you're being very specific about what you're referring to. And it really helps if someone's trying to help you ID something to know exactly what you're talking about, because otherwise it's kind of a crapshoot to understand. If someone just like describes a mushroom to me, I'm like, I can't tell you what that is. And if you use just a common name, something like a toadstool, I'm going to have no idea what you're referring to. Okay, so we're going to dump our wine caps in. Let those get a little brown on them. There's a little salt on there to draw some moisture out. Okay, I'm going to chop up this green garlic. I'll be adding that too. So I'm going to keep an eye on the chat a little bit more now than I was before. You just finished your thesis on mushroom identification. Interesting, Kayla. Where did you go to? Where'd you go to school to do a thesis on mushroom identification? No, I'm not vegetarian. I was just a second ago ripping up a whole bunch of smoked turkey to put into this dish. So while this is a lot of mushrooms and vegetables in the dish, there's also some smoked turkey leg because it's delicious, and I had it in the fridge. So. But I eat a lot of mushrooms and vegetables, but I also eat meat because I'm an omnivore. And I believe there is a sustainable way to eat both lots of mushrooms and veggies and meat. And when we look at farming, particularly stuff like silviculture, there's definitely space to eat a lot of different types of foods. And I think it's best if we don't shame people for their dietary choices, whether they're vegan or vegetarian or not. I think everyone has a right to eat what they want to eat, although I would always encourage people to eat more mushrooms, because I think eating more mushrooms is a really easy way to improve your health and bring a lot of good dietary fiber to your diet. And it's very sustainable. A lot of meat consumption is not super sustainable. And so I highly recommend eating lots of mushrooms as a way to improve your health, decrease your carbon footprint, just in general live a healthier lifestyle, because there's lots of compounds in mushrooms that are good for you. And so, yeah, you'll definitely feel better, look better, eat better if mushrooms are a regular part of your diet. But I've had some people get really weird about whether I'm vegan or vegetarian, because I'm not, but I encourage people to eat more mushrooms and eat less meat. And I think a lot about sustainability. And I think it's important to recognize that it's a very privileged thing to demand that people become vegetarian or vegan, because not everyone has access to the kinds of food that you can sustainably live on as a vegan or vegetarian. And depending on your socioeconomic status or where you live in the world, eating meat or animal products may be a necessity for survival. And even the fact that there's so many vegan foods that are palm oil, quinoa, things like this that are huge parts of processed vegan foods or vegetarian foods, those aren't sustainable at all. So sometimes it's better to hunt and eat your own meat than it would be to eat a bunch of processed foods where all the components have come from another country. So eating locally, sustainably, and seasonally is generally better for the environment as a whole than just going vegetarian or vegan. Right? I think even Alexis Nicole has done some great videos talking about that. So. What is this? You know that fungi control snail brains no, fungi are not going to evolve to control human brains the way that they do to insects. They don't, as far as I know, fungi don't control snails. There is some crazy thing that can grow inside of a snail brain, but it's not a fungus. I believe it's some sort of insect. No, fungi, cordyceps type mushrooms and entomopathic fungi can take over insects and cause them to do all sorts of funny things, like the little salt shakers of death cicadas that turn into transsexual zombies when they get infected by this massive spora fungus, or cordyceps, which turn ants into little zombie things. Those are pretty wild. But yeah, that's not going to happen to humans, because we have a very different immune system and brain than insects do, and so our immune system can handle that stuff, and it's not an issue for us. So it's not something you have to worry about. I did a whole video about showing that sort of Last of Us is cool sci-fi, but not a realistic concept. So, favorite mushroom. Listen to episode 11 of my podcast if you want to hear my rundown on my favorite mushrooms. I did a whole podcast episode about it. I suggest you check it out if you want to know. I get a lot of questions on lives that are repeat questions, so I did a whole series of podcasts where I try to answer your guys' most common questions. And if I refer you there now, it's just because, I've basically answered it in full, and I can't in the short time that I have your attention on a live, fully answer some of the questions that you guys asked me. Like, specifically, what's your favorite mushroom? Because, it took me about 40 minutes to answer that question in a podcast. So, okay. I'm going to take this bone, and actually, I'm not done stirring this around, so I won't do that quite yet. I still have more mushrooms to add to this too, but first I'm going to chop up a little bit of this turkey skin and fat that hasn't fully rendered out, and put that in to continue cooking down my veggies here. And this smoked turkey skin has so much flavor. It's really, really nice. I do not want it to go to waste. Got good texture too. Ooh. Yeah, ain't nothing like a big pot of beans to keep you going. Beans, greens, and mushrooms are definitely my key to health. Make me feel real good when I eat a lot of those things. And I think everyone would be generally happier and healthier if they were to eat more beans, greens, and mushrooms. We all have issues with getting enough fiber, unless you're vegan. And then, of course, you probably poop 3 times a day, and you get plenty of fiber. But for everyone who's not vegan, you probably don't poop enough. And I know that's a weird thing to say, but it's true. You'd be happier if you pooped more. And guess what? Mushrooms help you poop more. Not in a bad way, in a good way. But let's jack the heat up on this. There we go. Get this really frying down here. Split that mushroom in half. Split that one here. Alright. Let's see. Well, mushrooms don't really cause more farts. Like eating a bunch of broccoli or something like that can definitely cause farts. I don't find generally that mushrooms cause me to be farty. They just help me stay full for longer. But beans definitely make you fart more. Yes, that's true. But I will say there's something I feel like eating beans and greens and mushrooms together generally makes me less farty or upset than just eating straight beans. So there's something to be said for all the other enzymes and stuff that are in there and the kinds of bacteria you're stimulating that can actually, I think, be a really good thing for your system. And the more of this kind of stuff you eat, the less farty and gassy you feel when you eat it. The thing that actually causes my stomach to do backflips and feel really unwell is eating something like fast food. I still love In-N-Out, and I'll still go get In-N-Out once in a while when I'm in the mood. But man, it just does a number on me. And for a week straight, I'll be all farty and gassy just because I ate In-N-Out. But if I sit around and eat beans, greens, and mushrooms all week, then I feel fine. So it's just about how your microbiome shifts and changes as a result of what you eat. Because you quite literally are what you eat. And that gets translated in a very scientific way in your gut microbiome and what types of bacteria you have inside of you. So, okay. I got a bunch of mushrooms here. I'm going to dump all of these in because, well, I need to use them. They're in pretty big chunks, so I'm just running a knife through them real quick. Breaking them down just a little bit. Slightly smaller, marginally more bite-sized pieces. I got some pretty big beans in this. These scarlet runner beans are very large. Okay, so here's a whole bunch of porcini and butter boletes that I cooked down, and people always ask me to see what I cook with mushrooms, and so that's what I'm doing here for you guys. You are looking in real time at what I'm making. I do a lot of cooking streams on Instagram, so if you like this vibe and you want to actually get a little bit more of a recipe type thing, check out my Instagram. Because I'll cook on TikTok when I'm kind of just hanging out and chilling, doing whatever. But on Instagram, I'll go on, and usually in about half an hour I'll make kind of a whole recipe and then taste it for you guys. And here, this is something that's going to take a little while to cook down, so instead I'm just kind of hanging out and showing you guys what I'm doing as I go, and answering questions when I get good ones. So, anyhow, Okay. Okay, so I've got some really heady broth here, and that's awesome. But I'm also going to add just a little bit of like bouillon type stuff, so hang on, go to the fridge. So I got a little bit of this like better than bouillon stuff. I'm gonna just take a nice fatty spoonful, plop that in down there. I also got some dried mushroom powder. So I'm gonna put some of this in. This is like lots of umami flavor, lots of depth. Now here I have my scarlet runner beans. These are local beans from Rancho Gordo. It's a nice farm here in Napa. Pull this garlic clove out. Yeah, a couple pieces of dried porcini. I just put these in the pressure cooker for about half an hour, cooked them down. So they're not exploding yet, but they are cooked. And I'm gonna go ahead and figure out how to stir these in. First I'll just stir around all the veggies, all the mushrooms. Everything looks pretty good and cooked. But we're gonna dump our beans in here, and then I'll hit them with the stock. So, oh yeah, there we go. That worked. All our beans went in. There's a bay leaf there. I'll leave that to chill. Okay. A nice big mixture of beans and veggies and mushrooms. But these beans are still, they're not soft yet, and I want them to be soft, kind of right on the edge of exploding and making the sauce kind of thick. So I'm going to go ahead and dump a bunch of this really beautiful smoked turkey stock in, just to the brim. I'm going to jack the heat up and really let this rip. And this will cook down for probably about an hour or so. And it'll get really nice and thick, and the beans will get really soft, and the mushrooms will be nice and chewy and meaty. And then right before I go to serve it, I'll take all of my my smoked turkey like this, and I will I'll shred this up in small pieces and dump it and mix it in. So that's my dish. I'll stick this turkey bone in here too, just to get a little extra love going on. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Big pot of turkey beans, lots of good veggies, lots of yummy things. So I got a friend coming over for dinner tonight. Hopefully he'll help me eat a bunch of these beans, and if not, I'll give them to friends tomorrow. So, oh, thank you for the music note. Fantastic. Is that you, Laura, or who? Who's the snowblind blue? Appreciate it, whoever you are. Yes, thank you. Okay, and take just a little extra bit of goopy turkey stuff and dump this into. Ariel's doing okay. Okay, so there's my stew. I am probably going to sign off here and go do some work in the yard. If you guys want to watch this cook down, you can, but I might just sign off and maybe I'll go do some reading on TikTok in a few minutes. But I need to get some work done too. I spent a lot of time today in meetings and was nowhere near as productive in terms of the writing I wanted to get done. So now the turkey beans are on, I will go do some writing, and maybe in a little bit I'll come back and teach you guys about mushrooms in a fun way. So, whoop. Turn this around. There we go. Hi guys, it's Gordon. I just got a haircut today, so I'm a little more coiffed than usual. It will be stew, don't you worry. It's cooking down. That's the magic of time. Anyhow, if you guys want to learn more from me, please check out my website, fastingbyfungi.com. Link is in my bio. I've got cool merch. I've got mushroom discount codes where you can order mushroom cultivation supplies or other stuff you see me using, the cool little knife you see me using all the time. Yeah, I'm on all the different platforms. Please follow me on YouTube, on Instagram, on Pinterest, Facebook, Twitter, etc. I have a podcast if you want to hear me talk about science or go over the basics of foraging. Check out my podcast. I cover all sorts of stuff. Episode 7 is magic mushrooms I talk about. Episode 11 is what's my favorite mushroom. Episode 15 was all about morels. Episode 21 is all about mushroom cultivation. All sorts of stuff. So anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed watching, and thank you for hanging out. Thanks again, Laura, for the gifts, and I will catch you guys soon. Adios. Bye-bye.